Hello everyone, welcome back to another part of the tier list. I am JB, and of course with me is Mark Marsh.
Hey everybody.
So we are back to do, I guess, what may be the penultimate part at this point. So that is everything from Batman the Brave and the Bold all the way up until Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo. Now, as of recording this, Crypto isn't officially released yet, so maybe we do like a YouTube short together where we fill in where Crypto's gonna be. But for now, I guess we'll start off with Batman. So if you want to kick off with your thoughts about where you want to put Batman the Brave and the Bold on the tier list, and I'll kind of chime in afterwards.
I actually I like Batman Brave and the Bold. I think it's an amazing crossover. I just feel like they could have chose a better Batman. I have nothing wrong with Batman Brave and the Bold as a show, but I feel like it's a less serious Batman vibe. It's not as menacing as the Dark Knight that we know. So it's more like a kid's favorite, like downplay on Batman. He's still broody, but he's more reason and he's more friendly to look at. Whereas the crossover, I feel like that's why they use that Batman. But looking at the other crossovers with Batman in the past, I prefer those ones because at least then it's proper Batman in my sense. I feel like this is like the child down version, but as a movie, I really enjoyed it. So I feel like it deserves at least, however, it should deserve at least on the How Groovy.
Mm,
I think it
mm.
deserves an A ranking. To be fair, I don't think it's worse off. I don't think it deserves a mediocre score, but I feel like it's still good enough to be a How Groovy. It still
Y-
has some good moments in the movie
This is
because
an
your focus
interesting
is
one
on the gang, but it's a
because
good team up between two detectives, Velma and Batman.
Batman, yeah. See, I like that because I think you're coming at this really nicely with the Batman fan perspective, and I kind of I like Batman. I'm aware of Batman, like I watched all the Christopher Nolan movies, and I even watched the new one with like Robert Pattinson in, and I've liked all of them that I've seen enough. It's never really been a superhero that's resonated with me. So when this came along when we were doing these reviews about 2 years ago now, it was a little bit like, oh, here's another crossover. Like, this is one that I can maybe skip over. And I liked it a bit. I think if it was in my own personal tier list, I would put it either in the middle or to the upper part of the mid-story section. But I do see what you're saying with how groovy. It's just for me personally, I don't know. I don't think there's any that's in the How Groovy section right now that I would watch it, after. So I think if I'm feeling How Groovy, I'd want to put it just below Frank and Creepy, but I'm not too sure how that fits in with you.
I'm happy with that. It's down there, but it's still above mediocre at least in some aspects.
Yeah, and I do get what you're saying about different iterations. I suppose in kind of my terms, it'd be a little bit like, and I have not seen Brave and the Bold, so I'm not like slanderizing it. But from what you're saying, it's a little bit like if Spider-Man were to cross over with Scooby-Doo and it was Ultimate Spider-Man as opposed to Spectacular Spider-Man, something a little
Yeah.
bit like that. So that is interesting. That is interesting. But it's good that we kind of found that middle ground early on because I know that with some of us it's been a bit trickier. Like if people are watching this and for some reason this is their first part that they're watching, we had a whole section about the Loch Ness Monster movie. And so
Oh god.
now to kind of go on more neutral ground, at least starting off for this section, because we have got a lot coming up. It's nice to see. So the next one is Scooby Doo and the Gourmet Ghost. So I'll kick us off with that one. This to me, when I was watching it for the first time, was a breath of fresh air. I'd gotten a bit bogged down with some of the ones that we'd had previously. Like they kind of just wore me out. Maybe some of them were a bit gimmicky, some of them were a bit crossovery. And so this was like, oh, now we've got something that seems a little bit more classic Scooby. And kind of the more I've sat with it, the less I've liked it. Now, I don't hate it now, but I like it a lot less than when I initially reacted to it. Because to me, it was like, okay, I'm here doing a weekly thing. Oh, this one's, a bit better than the other ones. But now that I'm not doing the reviews and I can literally choose any Scooby-Doo movie on the shelf, this one's never really thought about. To me, this is kind of like Scooby-Doo and Gordon Ramsay said no. Or like Scooby-Doo and
That's what
Gordon
I
Ramsay
think.
wasn't available.
As I say, I'm like, all right, we couldn't get Gordon Ramsay, but we
You
got Bobby Flay.
don't even get
We got this.
what's that
We
other
can
guy
make it
called?
work.
Oliver.
Oh,
What's his name? Jamie Oliver. They couldn't even
David
get
Oliver.
Jamie Oliver. Like
No, they got all the B list chefs.
Scooby-Doo and Gordon Ramsay and Jamie Oliver weren't
See, if it
available.
had Gordon Ramsay, I would put it up there as How Groovy,
Mm.
high up there because it's Gordon Ramsay. Because when I watched it, I feel like I was getting Hell's Kitchen vibes. I think they were going with trying to get Gordon Ramsay on and trying to do a Hell's Kitchen type vibe special for the Scooby-Doo show, but I don't think they could afford Gordon Ramsay, or he didn't want to do it. So instead, they had to change it, and it doesn't really make sense with the chefs that they got. Like, I'm not saying they're bad chefs; they're great at what they do, but like
Yeah, sure,
they
sure.
don't come anywhere close to as how Gordon Ramsay is
It's crazy
with
though,
the stuff he
because
comes out of.
I feel like that's why they had Sous Chef Sue mixed in there, because she was the kind of one that was like, "You put onions on the floor, I kill you. You
Yeah,
make a mess, I kill you." Like, I think
I feel
maybe
like
she was the counterbalance
yeah,
to that.
is like the fill in for
Yeah.
Gordon Ramsay. She's Gordon Ramsay's spirit in that
Like
movie.
she got Ramsay's lines that he couldn't do, and I think she does a
I
good
could
job. It's just the
understand,
main
like,
chef is like,
they could have done
why?
like an adult version of it where he just starts swearing. It's raw. They could
You
have done
donkey.
that. They could have done that. It's just like God. I was really hoping when I first heard about it. I really thought, oh my god, they better have Gordon Ramsay. And then when it came out, I was like, it's like some cheap indie film of Indiana Jones, and someone's just completely done their own thing for it. It's like it's not really. It feels like they were trying to go with Hell's Kitchen, but in the end, they just had to like do it as like British Bake Off or something like that, and that's what it felt like.
They could have
It's like
even
a
had like
downgrade.
Mary Berry or something. Literally, like I don't know. I don't know if Bobby Flay is like really relevant in America. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just to me personally, it was almost like I don't understand like why this couldn't happen. Because when you think about say Scooby-Doo and Guess Who, you've got like literally Mark Hamill there, Morgan Freeman on there. It's kind of like you could afford Morgan Freeman for television, but you can't afford Gordon Ramsay for a DTV. It's like
Oh no,
I don't know. And he said no. That could have been maybe every other chef said no, but I
you
just
know
feel
what
like
you
it was
should do?
missing
You
something.
should send Gordon Ramsay a message and find out.
You know what? I actually
He
were.
might actually reply back.
I think I met him as a child. I had like a signed cookbook of his, but I think I gave it to Millie because the guy scares me. Like it, but yeah, I agree. Like we could have had some like effing and jeffing action, or even just like some, like in the have you seen the SpongeBob episode where they learn how to swear, and then like instead of swearing, there's like dolphin noises,
Yeah,
just something like that. Where every time you went to like drop an f bomb or something, there's like a row like that comes out of his
it'd be
mouth, or
every
just
two
something like
seconds.
that. Like oh, I don't know, I don't know. So with this one, I like that it was more classic. I just kind of wish that I was watching and I was in a multiverse watching another version of this one. So if you'd asked me when I'd first seen this, I'd have put it somewhere in How Groovy. Now,
Mediocre.
middle of mediocre. I would say
Yeah,
almost.
yeah, because
I would
that's
say
probably the
almost in
it,
between monster, like below Monster of Mexico, above Phantasaur maybe. But even
yeah.
then,
But
like,
as long as it's in the middle, because it's a nice balance, you can still.
yeah.
It's not the first thing you pick off the shelf.
So I'd put
Because
it
I
below
don't think I watched
Mexico.
it that many times, but at the start when I first watched it, if we first watched it now, we would have put A for How Groovy.
Yeah.
But now time's passed and that, and now we've seen these other movies, and we go back to rewatch old ones. We then realise it belongs in the B category for a reason.
Yeah, like it's not bad, but not being bad, doesn't really get you too far when there's like 30 movies on a tier list. So definitely I will watch it again, but we'll see, we'll see. So I think it does have its good place there. Ooh, and now we're on some rocky territory. Not quite
Oh,
the rockiest of territories, maybe, but we are in rocky territory because now we have Scooby-Doo and the Curse of the 13th Ghost. Mark, do you
Disappointment.
wanna?
This whole film's a curse. It's stole my childhood. I love 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. It ended on the biggest cliffhanger ever, where they only caught 12 of the 13 ghosts, and everyone kept asking until they made this movie. They kept asking what happened to the 13th ghost, because they never caught it. They just left it and forgot about it and went on the merry ways, met with the other gang, and done other adventures. So of course, when they dropped this, I'm thinking, finally, after so many years, we now have the answers of the 13 ghosts, only to be put down. It's like telling a kid Santa's not real, or the Tooth Fairy's not real, or the presents actually come from your mum and dad. That's why they're not coming. It's like that. It's like going up to Halloween as a kid and giving a kid a bar of soap or sugar-free candy. That's what this film has done to my childhood.
I would say it was worse. I would say it was like telling your child that Santa Claus isn't real, and then the next week say, actually, we were wrong. Santa Claus is real. Santa Claus 100% exists, and then hiring someone out to dress in a Santa Claus suit to kick that child in the face. That's what this is like.
But the one thing that really bothers me about this movie is that the gang don't age. They're still the same.
Yeah,
but Flim Flam, on the other hand,
see, that's the thing. I wouldn't mind. I don't mind the gang not aging, but when there was like a massive difference with Flim Flam, it's like, what happened?
Technically, you should be the same age, logically. So how has he gone from a small kid to pretty much a teenager? How? What, did he stumble through a time portal or something that's aged in an instant, or has the gang always been frozen at place? That's the biggest mystery of the movie. And also, they don't mention Scrappy-Doo. Fair enough. I don't think they try and bring it up. They tried to. I think Flim Flam mentioned it once.
What's a Scrappy?
Yeah, I think Flim Flam tried to bring it up there, but he got shot down. And the second thing I didn't like about this movie is Velma's performance. I feel like before, Velma's been an okay character to get behind, but I feel like this movie spoiled her new agenda to where people wanted to hate her. It just went straight down. I don't know why, but Velma became a disliked character after this film because she kept debunking everything. Everything you knew that was creepy and supernatural from the old days, she was debunking. But a whole explanation of why the ghost ain't real is because high altitude air. You're telling me through the whole entire 12 episodes of 30 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, they were hallucinating? What, did Shaggy just share his mushrooms out to everyone? I don't believe that for a second. It was all real. That's what really bothered me.
It's just ridiculous because it's like the way Velma goes about it as well. Because, and maybe this, I mean, look, I've never been a fan of Kate McCucci's performance, but I think she is put in a tough spot here when we actively have the writers and Warner Brothers going, right, Velma is the logical one. So now she's going to be the one to tell the gang that this isn't real, which maybe in another instance is fine. Like I was saying this on a podcast the other day. Like I liked Linda Cardellini in the live action movie talking about where the different projectors were, because that shows us that this is a smart character. She can deduce things. She sees things that others don't. But then in this context, when the same character is doing the same thing, it isn't just saying, oh, this is a smart person. It's going to the audience, the things that you thought, you were wrong. Like you're the one that was wrong to think that. So it's when she starts being used to tear down the audience's perception of something that was once beloved and cherished that it's like completely ridiculous. Now, it would have annoyed me a lot less, to be honest, if it was like Mindy Cohn or something. But the fact that the person delivering this message is like, but none of this is real. Oh, this is fake. And it's because of swamp gas and high altitude. It's like, okay. Like,
that doesn't make sense on a scientific level.
Can we push her off the mountain or something like just anything? And it really isn't her fault in terms of like it's the writing. It is what it is. Like a character had to say that to fit in Warner Brothers, ghosts aren't real type vibe. But it's just you throwing that character to the wolves.
Yeah, because what I've done is I've blocked out this movie. In my mind, it doesn't exist. There is no 32 movie on the Scooby-Doo. It doesn't exist. What I'm looking at here is nothingness. I've just deleted it from my brain. I still believe there is a 13 Ghost Lodge. I still believe Van Gogh has magical powers. I believe all of the monsters that they captured were real. And to
Now,
be fair, it's probably the 13 Goes to Scooby-Doo is the only show that I actually enjoy watching Scrappy doing.
oh, really?
Because yeah, it's the only one that I can actually watch behind again and again without getting discouraged with the character. I feel like they didn't pressure him on anyone else. It was a much more eased off character base, and I feel like that was his only limelight was in 13 Goes to Scooby Doo. For like anything else that they were in, they were pushing him on to people. So I feel like 13 Goes to Scooby Doo did it right how it should have been to the audience, and I think that was the last time we saw Scrappy Doo on the air was part of that show.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, look, there are things that I do like about the movie. Like, I think as a Daphne fan, I think there's some good Daphne stuff here. Like, I think her new outfit, for all I don't think it's as good as her original outfit, I think it's still pretty good. And the action scenes I think were good. The song, the Scooby Station song, I like that. But
It's
apart from some good Daphne sections, I can't really think of anything else that I enjoy about this one.
it had like the montage with the suit up with the
Mm.
nostalgic van. That was a nice throwback, but other than that, there's not really a lot to go on. But I do feel like this movie and the next three after are part of a continuation. So I feel like in the movies in the past, the stories don't continue on with the next movie. It's a completely new environment. Whereas this one, compared to the next one, it's basically the same continuation storyline progressing. So when you move on to Zombie Island, it's continuing over, and you see that where it tries to develop that continuation storyline, like a Mystery Incorporated. And then with Happy Halloweens, they're trying to go with the whole um, full circle approach with the sheriff being the main culprit in the Halloween one. I like that. I just don't like how they use these movies to try and not only ruin it for the fans, but try to push a
Yeah.
continuation storyline. Because in a sense, it's like a three-part movie if you have to take all the facts. Because if you just watch Happy Halloween, you're questioning why the sheriff is the culprit because you got to go back and watch the other two. So if they were going to do a three-part set, it would involve these three.
It's just a bit, I think they had the right idea, but I think they had the right execution in terms of like one thing that people liked about the Mystery Incorporated animation show was that storyline. And it's almost like maybe they tried to recapture a bit of that here, but I think there were different writers on some of these projects, a different creative team to the point where in between stories there was some inconsistencies. Like, what is it? Fred gets the mystery machine back at the end of this, but then he's missing it at the start of another one. Like, there's weird discrepancies with the mystery machine. So I do think they should try this again potentially, but they just need the same writer, same vision, doing all those three movies to like give us a more cohesive story and unique stories. It doesn't need to be like a let's go on a tour of Scooby history, trampling it down. Because I almost want to say that both this and Return to Zombie Island, for me, it's a little bit worse than what Velma the show did, because that was just awful, but it was awful on itself. Like the how bad that was didn't take away, for me anyway, on how good Mystery Incorporated is or how much I can laugh watching Be Cool Scooby Doo. Whereas this was like, no, actively we're gonna go into something that was good and we're gonna try and dismantle it from the inside. Now it doesn't take away from how good Zombie Island is, but knowing where that ends up is a little bit sad. So my personal feeling on this one, I think it's not as bad as one of them coming up by far, but I still feel you either put this at the end of Scooby-Doo or in Swamp Gas.
I'm I say put it at the bottom of Scooby Doo
Mhm.
because we all know where the real swamp gas lies with. So I say at the bottom of C.
See, I think that's really fair to be honest, because there is such a divide between, in my opinion, because I kind of transition onto this because this is the one that we've got next. But I'd say they're both pretty bad. But I do stand by Curse of the 13th is up here on the bad scale in terms of like, this is how good it is, but in relative to it being bad. And Zombie Island Return to Zombie Island is so much further down than that. Like there is definitely a drop down in quality. So I mean, what other places there for Return to Zombie Island? I mean, the thing's swamp gas. I mean, I don't, in
See,
my opinion, anyway.
I say we make a new category below swamp gas, like dog shit,
We
and
will
just
put it on in
put it.
there with like a load of poo emojis around it or
We'll
something.
just make a new one below swamp gas. This is like legendary shit. Like this is the worst of the worst. Only a selected few get into this pile, and I feel like that's where Return to Zombie Island belongs. It belongs in that pile.
Potentially, it could be the
It's that
crappiest piece
bad.
of
It
crap in crap
deserves its
now.
own status, and it should have the poo emoji.
I'm definitely. We should write it like here at the bottom of swamp gas, but I'm gonna put like a steaming turd right next to it. Return to Z, and there we have a nice poo emoji. I'm gonna color that in later, and I'm gonna do something visually either in this part or at the end of it. Because I mean, what else can you say? I don't think it's worth sitting here and rehashing every
I
aspect that's
haven't
bad. I
watched
mean,
it since it came out.
it's just I don't know. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, but just what it does, what it represents, and how it executes certain things is just it's just really not good. Like at least when you look at something that we've put a bit lower down, like the mystery map, at least that tried to do something different with its own unique thing.
Yeah,
Whereas this is just I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think I get angry thinking about the Kiss movie more, but I can acknowledge when something like Return to Zombie Island is just completely without much merit. I mean, if you have a gun to my head, if I think about something that I can like about it, the opening titles I think are good. The way that they recreate some of the scenes and the music, that is a good opening title. Other than that, Swamp Gas. Worse than
yeah.
Swamp Gas.
It's probably the what it has its own emoji and category next to it. It's legendary grade terrible. It belongs at the bottom of the pile.
The biggest piece of dog shit.
Didn't I say that in one of those interviews that we did where I didn't like it? I criticized. I swear, did I do an interview?
Yeah, I think you said
I
that
did.
to the producer of it, which is so I was just thinking the other day though, because that to me was like the scariest moment in an interview ever. But then I was thinking to myself, the second interview you did, because the first one was Jesse Leon McCann, the second one was Joe Sichter, and he didn't say anything negative about the Loch Ness Monster movie there. So I think you maybe lulled me into a sense of full security. And then like you just let it rip with Return to Zombie Island, and I was
Oh
like,
no.
oh no, what do I
he
do?
was so confident about Zombie, thinking, nah, mate, you ruined that
I can't believe
sequel.
it. Ew, he look,
You
and I've gone over this. Like I wasn't pleased with that situation, but the fact that he asked us what we thought of it, I don't know.
I was there thinking,
That's asking
oh,
for trouble.
thank you.
Like why ask?
Sit back, let me tell you.
Ridiculous scenario. So moving onwards and hopefully upwards, we have Happy Halloween Scooby-Doo, which look, I've been getting in my Halloween mode. I'm getting all my orange
I
and
actually
autumn
enjoy
decor. Oh crap,
this
I've just dropped
movie.
something. Yeah, I mean if you want to kick us off with your breakdown of it.
Weirdly enough, I honestly thought this was going to be the third shit stain that they were going to develop, and I was like, do I really want to watch this? I'll give it a go. And to be surprised, I feel like they listened to the feedback on the last two, and then they fixed it somehow in this movie where they made. To be fair, I've really enjoyed it. I can honestly sit down and rewatch this without hesitation on the way it was presented. Obviously, you had Scarecrow, so you had the Gotham villain himself in this movie, and I thought, okay, they can't downplay this because this is Scarecrow. He's creepy. Okay, he's one of Batman's top 10 arch nemesis. Okay, he's not a fool to be taken lightly. And I was a bit hysterical though that you cannot ruin Scarecrow. Okay, his fear toxins are no joke. And so when I watched it, creepy element using his fear toxins, having Scarecrow there, they actually had the right environment for it. Obviously, there was a hidden agenda with the sheriff, but it was nice to see that Crane was actually helpful to some degree because he knew he was being played from the start, but he was still how high his own agenda to escape. So I really found it was quite well seeing a team up between Velma and Crane as a nice duo because you don't normally see those two together. If it was Batman there, Batman would just be, giving him the Gotham Knight justice there and then. I was really hoping for Batman to come in that movie, just make an appearance to grab Scarecrow at the end. So yeah, I say for me, I would probably put it. I want to say in how groovy. In my sense, I want to put it as how groovy because I can seriously rewatch it again. Because I don't think there's something wrong with the movie. The car chase scene was another good touch because I still found that quite hilarious how they kept changing vehicles to vehicles, especially with Fred. Because I think he goes full Spartan Fred, what they
Yeah.
call it in that movie.
I think it's an interesting one because I love what they did, like you say, with Scarecrow. Because, say, for me personally, say if I didn't know anything about Scarecrow, which I knew a bit, obviously, like I said, with the Nolan movie, but apart from that, you know that Scarecrow is a very smart, cunning individual. And if nothing more, even for non Batman fans, he was such an excellent foil to Velma to the point where it was almost a little bit like Sherlock meeting his Moriarty, or
Yeah,
even Batman meeting his equivalent of Joker. Like, that's the vibe that it set up. And I really did like that quite a lot. And there was the music, which I loved. The one thing that kind of drags me down is how a lot of it is just reduced to one big car chase scene, which I didn't dislike, but when it's, Happy Halloween, we had the cool pumpkin characters, I would want it to be a bit more creepy, maybe, as opposed to we're in cars and now it's like, something else. It's like the WWE racing movie. But other than that, I liked it a lot. I love Daphne's interaction with Elvira. I think that was really cool. So I'm not against how groovy at all. It's not one that stands out to me, especially because when it comes to Halloween, I think we've got some pretty good contenders as far as Scooby goes. Like, I mean, look at Goblin King. Goblin King's right up there in the how groovy category. I don't think I'd put it anywhere too close to Goblin King, but I think it's a more palatable movie than Goblin King, if you want to call it that. Like, it's less weird and more, clean cut Halloween, pumpkin action. So I'd say it's how groovy. I just don't know where I want to put it in how groovy.
yeah, because probably the hardest. But I'll be happy if it was like at the bottom. I'll be happy with that because it's still in the
Mm.
how groovy category. That makes it more easier.
I'd almost put it above Batman,
Because
but not as
I
good
feel
as
like
Frankencreepy.
they at least fixed it where stuff was wrong.
Because Frankencreepy is a bit Halloweeny as well, isn't it,
Yeah,
really? I would almost put it just below Frankencreepy because I enjoyed it more than Batman. But it's, I guess, more specific. I don't know.
it's a hard one to put this one because I feel like they'd definitely listen to the fans and fix some of the issues.
I mean, the Bill Nye stuff was, I didn't really understand any of that. That was kind of weird.
The only bit I felt weird about the movie was the sheriff. Why did they focus so much on him as being this? Because he didn't really have. Because to be fair, if you took all of it together, no one was really bothered about the sheriff. He didn't really steal the limelight. He was there for 2 seconds and gone.
True.
His big ploy was a joke. He didn't really succeed. He just brought problems for himself, and then he revealed himself to everyone. It's like, oh, this is what I've done. Let me give you a whole flashback of everything. It's like every Bond villain ever.
Yeah, it's almost like this should have been the ending of a part two, and then
Yeah,
a part three would have been like the big standoff. Whereas as it is, he just reveals himself
and
and
then
then f's off.
Scarecrow just like Batman's him himself. Just like they could have done more of the sheriff, like find more
Yeah,
reason, like you said, a face off would have been more better. So
especially
at
with the
least,
build up. Like they actively said we're going to have a continued plot, and then just go and let's reveal it and expect people to go, "Oh my gosh, no way that was set up for all of that." Like I don't know. I think that
Thank
see
God I
that
put
brings it
myself through
down a
horror
little
watching the
bit.
last two films.
Imagine that you have to get through the last two
That's
films.
probably why they made them so bad. I think, right, no one's going to
That's
rewatch these.
ridiculous.
Let's end the third one good, so that way they have to rewatch the other two.
See, I think you're right now. Then I think the bottom of how groovy. Because if it was just the Scarecrow or some other reveal, maybe it'd be better.
Yeah,
Because it is good. It's just a shame that it has to deal with the kind of backlash of the other two. Oh, so now we've got a new one, a modern one, very modern one. I remember getting this release day on DVD, and we have the Sword and the Scoob. And I suppose I'll kick us off with this one. I thought that I've got a lot of love and nostalgia as far as this was the first one that we got when coming back to the community for the first time in a while. So I got a lot of nostalgia for it, and obviously there was the collab that I did with Smash in terms of the reaction, like ages ago now. So I've got a lot of love around the time that it was coming out. I also like how, unlike a lot of the things that I've seen recently, like the Sherlock episode of Guess Who, it took time to hire, authentic and notable British actors to play certain roles, like Jason Isaacs as King Arthur and Nick Frost as Merlin. I think they wasted Nick Frost a bit, but the fact that he was on there, I think was awesome because I love the Cornetto trilogy, the Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End. Anything that Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are in, I think I will watch. So I did like that aspect of things. But ultimately, it's kind of a little bit. It just happens for me. It's just there's not really any consequence to what goes on in it. It just is watching stuff happening, which I'm not fully against of because movies at the end of the day are just for entertainment. They're to kill a bit of time. But I don't know if this is too stale. But yeah,
but this
Mark,
was
what do you
this,
think?
this is also the movie that was originally titled In King Arthur's Court
Mm.
before they changed it because it was originally meant to be called Scooby-Doo in King Arthur's Court. But then sometime before they released the trailer, they changed it to The Sword and the Scoob. I don't know why, because it doesn't really sound that good for the tongue when I say Scooby Doo and the Sword and the Scoob. It just doesn't really sound intimidating because the whole story changed on this movie where it was meant to be focused around King Arthur. It ended up feeling like Dragon's Quest. That's what it felt like. I feel like Shaggy is the main protagonist in Dragon's Quest, and even the bridge scene with the dragon is from the game, and I'm just like, even going through the castle, it's from the game. I'm just like, I don't understand. Were they just trying to make it based on the game because they ran out of imagination? Okay, and being teleported to another world, allegedly, where magic exists, and then finding out the whole reason behind all this was to get the land. And I'm like, I swear there was too much involved just for a piece of land that they didn't want. That, I wouldn't say I hated it, but I wouldn't say it's definitely my other recommendation.
I mean,
I
I
would
love
probably,
the time travel sequence. For all it ended up being bogus, I love that it flashed back to a few things. I just
yeah, because if
don't
you
fully
pause it, you can
buy
see a lot of the nostalgic stuff into it.
the illusion because I understand that the phone was out of charge. I don't know how the villains knew that, but the fact that there were like no planes in the sky, like the fact that there was no indication, like no car horn in the distance, that
Yeah,
could have given you a clue that something isn't quite as it seems. I think was a bit goofy, but I agree. I think it isn't awful, but it's not excellent. Realistically, it is the definition of a mid-story movie.
yeah, because the whole town was behind all of it to try and get the deed to the whole town and that. Then they ended up getting it stolen underneath them by another party. I'm just like, what is wrong with this? One big Illuminati conspiracy after another. I did like the ending though, where it nodded to Merlin being there for a brief moment, indicating that magic somehow exists, and Velma's just trying to puzzle it for her mind. Because I feel like that's Velma's thing now is debunking the unnatural. And if something cannot be explained, she has to find a solution for it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's her gimmick now. I feel like that's her main trait for the team. Whereas before, she was great at figuring out the clues and finding out who the culprit was. Now, it doesn't matter about the culprit because that's Fred's department now. Fred traps the guys. That's all they need to do now to unravel them. Velma's job is to find out what's real and what isn't real.
Yeah,
And
she's like
then,
Mythbusters or
yeah,
something.
yeah, she's like, oh, there's perfectly good reason behind this. Let's just do it this way. And then they're like, oh, okay. Because let me enjoy magic for 2 minutes.
Yeah, and I like that it was Nick Frost as well. Because Nick Frost is awesome. So where in Midstory do you think we put this? Because
I personally want to put it in mediocre, somewhere around the middle.
I like it better than a lot of these. I like it. Oh, so okay. How do you feel about below Reluctant Werewolf but above WrestleMania Mystery?
Oh, I'd be down for that.
Because I think that looks like a good space for it.
The really good space spot.
See, this middle tier is going to get quite packed, but I think that's kind of expected.
I
Because
feel like
really,
majority of them are in mediocre.
I think Midstory was maybe even that. Like, look, I'm not signing off on that as the name of the category. It is what it is. You know, there's got to be that middle ground, but I like it a lot. I like that placing. I think we've got a pretty good list so far. But now we are on to, oh yeah, Scooby-Doo meets Courage the Cowardly Dog. Another one that's like really, really recent. So I remember this coming out. But Mark, what's your initial thoughts on Scooby-Doo meets Courage the Cowardly Dog out of nowhere?
So, Courage Cow Dog is my childhood show. I remember it used to terrify me as a kid because it was one of those creepy, old school, dark shows where it appealed to both kids and adults, where the kids saw this terrifying like creatures of the night for a dog's perspective. And I feel like that's the whole point of the show, is to see what the dog sees. And to us, it might just be a normal day, but the dog sees other stuff because he's traumatized. So as an adult looking back on it, I can see that Courage is a traumatized dog where he sees reality shift differently than everyone else, and that shows on the audience. So as a kid, I was terrified of most of the episodes because of how creepy the soundtrack was, the way the art style was. And looking back at it now, I still love the show. It's weird how it only got one season, but it's a great show. I would recommend anyone watching it. So to see them now after so long do a crossover with Scooby-Doo, it's like a dream come true. But it's not the only crossover with Courage the Cowardly Dog. Because back, oh my god, this was way back. You know when they used to do the marathon on Scooby-Doo? And then after when the commercial break hit, they did these short specials. It's like
Oh,
Scooby-Doo
like
behind
the
the scenes.
bumpers.
They've done one with Courage the Cowardly Dog with Scooby-Doo. And I forget what the short is called, but I think I have most of them saved on my hard drive. But it basically it was over the Halloween period, or the Halloween scarathon, something like that, for Scooby-Doo. And so during the break, we see each of these shorts for Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo, where they interact with each other, where they solve a mystery together. And I think there was 15 parts in total.
15.
I think there was, which were like a minute or so each. And I feel like that never got released on any VHS or DVD set, because I checked. And it was only ever aired on TV that year. And the only footage people have is what people recorded on their VHS tapes. So the episodes that you see online on YouTube and that are pretty much ripped from people's VHS tapes. And that's why it's not complete, because people are still trying to find with the community those missing pieces. And Warner Bros. Probably does have them in a vault somewhere, but they have not released them. And I thought with this movie coming out, they could at least put those special features on the DVD. And that's the one thing I was hoping for. And they didn't. And I was like, you missed a golden opportunity, because people would love to have that as a bonus feature instead of whatever bonus feature they put on there. But as the movie itself, I thought it did a very good job capturing both the essence of Courage the Cowardly Dog and Scooby-Doo and mixing the vibes together, because they didn't actually do anything that would tarnish the show itself with Courage. I feel like it improved it, and it got a lot of people more aware of that character, because a lot of generations now they don't know about these old shows. I thought this was a great crossover to bring Courage back, and if they were to do another Courage show, at least they have a foundation to work on. But I know it's not going to happen now because many of the voice actors are gone now, sadly. I think both Miriam and the old guy's gone now.
Yeah.
You used to voice act them, which was quite.
Muriel Thea White sadly passed away. But I think they recast Eustace for this movie with Jeff
Yeah,
Bergman.
because he,
And
he
obviously
passed
Marty
away
Grabstein's
before.
been there from for the whole thing. So I guess they could get someone in as Muriel, although I'm not sure if people would embrace that. But I agree with you actually. Like I think I like this movie a lot. And I have got a lot of negatives about the movie, but none of it really is to do with the movie. It's all about marketing and branding. Like even, despite those lost episodes, the fact that one of the bonus features wasn't an episode of Courage to me is absolute lunacy. Like the first episode of season one of Courage being the bonus features is just something that should be a given anyway. Because obviously, like you said, it introduced a lot of the younger generation to Courage. Now, if people do want to transition to watching that show, here's a good springboard. Here's a sample. You like what you see here? This is the sample. Almost you could have episode one be a trailer for that whole season. But then the fact that it was just 3 episodes of Scooby, yeah, it's cool enough, but it's like, it just I can't believe that there was
Yeah,
no
because
Courage there.
people already know Scooby Doo, but the younger generation don't know about Courage. It could be for two things, because as it's still a kid show, Scooby Doo, I feel like the Courage episodes back then when I was a kid, that was acceptable for kids, the Courage episodes. Whereas I feel like now, Warner Bros. Feel like parents wouldn't agree that the Courage is a kid show due to how creepy it was. Because a lot of people, when they talk about Courage as a kid, it was scary. Okay, it had its creepy side to it. So then maybe that's why they didn't add it on there. But they could at least put one episode out of the bunch that would have been more suitable, because I'm pretty sure there's one that isn't that terrifying. It's weird, but it's not that terrifying. I think it's the chicken one. I don't think that one's scary. It's weird, but it's not scary. But yeah, it's a lot of nostalgic watching this movie
Even
because
like Cajun
it brings
Fox wouldn't
back a
have been
lot.
too scary.
Yeah, so it depends how you look at it. There's a few ones that look dark tone and creepy, but there are some ones that are just like
Yeah.
weird to look at. Like you question, is it okay?
I mean, Freaky Fred's pretty weird.
But
Naughty. Like,
there's a lot of weird characters in that show. It's even the eggplants
oh, I love
episode
those.
that was a great, but it was so weird how where they come up with this stuff, especially now it's from the eyes of a traumatic dog being
I'd like to
abandoned.
be a traumatic dog. I think movie aside, I think it does, like you said, a good job in blending the two. Like obviously they can't really do it as scary as it was, but I do think they did try and have their moments. Like the when you see, Muriel Eustace and the Scooby Gang like hanging from the ceiling, but like in the shadows. I feel like that's maybe the closest it gets to capturing that, this is what Courage sees, his perspective. And what I find ridiculous about this one though is the amount of stuff that it gets away with in the chase montage, turning the Scooby Gang, 8-bit, turning them into like a fish. So all that can happen, and yet they can't acknowledge that the zombies were real in Zombie Island. Like
Yeah,
that's crazy that you can canonically turn the gang into like little 8-bit Mario characters, but oh no, it's real zombies. That's crazy. That's lunacy. So I like it a lot. I'm feeling like it's above mediocre. I feel like it's a good one, but again, like with all these, I've no clue where to put it because in my heart of hearts, I
See,
liked it more than Halloween, liked it more than Batman. Oh, some elements of Frank and Creepy I preferred, but I could make the argument in my own head. But I don't
with
know.
me, I don't know if my love for courage had clouded my judgment, but I want to put it as how groovy. But I don't know if I don't know if it's my reasoning because I'm
No,
just
I like it.
it's just I do like the episode really well, and it captures both shows that it doesn't actually tarnish any of them.
I just don't know where to put it because I'm confident that I would rather watch Courage, the crossover, more than Happy Halloween and Batman Brave and the Bold. But I'm not sure about Frank and Creepy because there's elements that I think are more fun with the Courage crossover. I just don't know. And then you get to
Yeah.
Cyber Chase and it's like, oh gosh, I really don't know now. So I either want to put it just above or below Frank and Creepy, but I can't decide in my head which one. It could be flip a coin at this point.
I say put it above.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. Because I do like it a lot. I know, like, I think some people don't like it because it wasn't as scary, but I think it does enough. And I love that they got cats and the quack. Like, oh, like,
Team up.
stop it. I love those too much. I love it too much. Okay, so now
The
this is
name's
the
quite a long one. That's another
yeah,
thing. It's
Scooby
the
Doo
lot.
meets Courage the Cowardly Dog straight out of nowhere.
It's straight out of nowhere.
Straight out of
Just
nowhere.
Scooby-Doo meets Courage the
Oh,
Cowardly Dog.
straight out of nowhere.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
the longest title. Just call it Scooby-Doo meets Courage the Cowardly Dog. Okay, I know straight out of nowhere is where Courage lives, but you don't have to put it in the title. That's
Yeah,
always
that's true.
bothered me. It's like,
Scooby Doo. Oh, like they did with Crypto, you could have Scooby Doo and Courage too.
yeah,
That's it. Something like that. Let me see now. We have the last one of this part of the tier list again, like the penultimate part of the tier list potentially, and that is Trick or Treat Scooby Doo. So I'm gonna kick us off here. I think this might be controversial, possibly to you. I'm not sure, but to me, this is the one that I like the most out of this batch of the tier list. Now, I love the art style. I think going back to Guess Who, I like how it looks still, but I don't think it looks as good, when it's moving. And but I think that they perfected the art style here. It's a lot more fluid, and you could argue a lot more cartoonish. But I think that type of art style, I think it lends itself to that a little bit. I mean, there's some stuff I'm not a great fan of, like the close-up shots of like some of the characters, but in movement, I like it a lot. Coco Diablo is she's one of my new favorite characters. Let me think what else.
she reminds me of the woman from Incredibles who does
Yeah,
the
literally
suits,
like
but
Edna
she's
mode.
well, I sort of feel like she's like the Edna that does the villain's outfits. It's like roles reversed.
She's like Edna's slightly
Yeah,
sultry, slightly cooler younger sister. Like, I just love Coco so much. What else do I like about it? The music. I mean, I like the backing track a lot, obviously, but the song that plays when they're like doing up the mystery machine, I love that one a lot. Again, I think it's a bit wacky that it's another Halloween one so close, but I like Halloween. Halloween's one of my favorite seasons, so I'm not too mad at that.
and I
Um,
especially like the gang being chased by themselves, evil versions of them, which are ghosts,
yes, and the classic
which
villains.
which kind of brings back nostalgia because I know What's Your Scooby Doo did that as well, but the gangs were made out of robots. So it's nice seeing that they're being chased by themselves,
I
their
just
own fear
love
is themselves.
how it brought it new visually, like Guess Who visuals. But the second the 10,000 volt ghost suit lights up, it was like literally straight out of that Scooby Doo show episode. So good. So I don't know, maybe it's recency bias. You could definitely argue that. But I'm thinking how groovy for this one.
I want to say how groovy as well.
I
I
love
I
this
I
one.
actually really enjoyed it, and especially it's always been on my mind is that when you watch Scooby Doo, it's the question is how the hell do they make the costumes? I swear they spend more money on the costumes
than
and
the
the whole
actual
entire
than they
scheme
need. They
than
could
the
just sell
paint
the
back. Yeah,
costumes
I'm
and
just like, you could have sold the costume idea, made money to buy whatever you wanted. Instead, you used it, put yourself in debt to get a land to pay off your debt, to then be like, oh, yay, profit. And then this movie comes out, like, oh, okay, there's someone actually makes these. Okay,
and
that
you could
explains
argue
it.
it doesn't necessarily fit in with 1969, but I'm a good believer in like multiverse. So
Yeah.
maybe if even if I don't buy, oh, Captain Cutler's suit must have been made by Coco canonically in 1969, I can go, oh, so a version of Captain Cutler's suit from 1969, was made by Coco, and I like that a lot. The only thing that does piss me off, and it's Warner Bros. It's everything to do with Warner Brothers and nothing to do with Trick or Treat, is even if you didn't like it, it was the welcoming in of another era. Much like how, for all maybe you were disappointed in between Legend of the Vampire and, the first What's New Scooby-Doo one, it was welcoming in a new era. And I feel like that's what we were going to have here. Because obviously, Haunted High Rise would have been probably in the same, Guess Who style. And we could have had a group of, movies like that. And now it's like with crypto, I'm happy it's coming out, don't get me wrong, but it's like we took a step forward and now we're kind of taking a step back again. Like we could
Yeah.
have got this and then Hex Girls. Like,
We could have got the Haunted High Rise,
oh,
or
but
we could have got the Scoob, like how the Christmas
go
movie,
the holiday hunt.
the Holiday Hunt. We could have got that as well. And I feel like Trick or Treat was the first one where they developed Velma uh, relationship status, revealing it to everyone. Because doesn't she like fall for the main protagonist?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
Coco and I prefer that than just like low hanging fruit, easy. Like, oh, if Velma comes out like this, then it has to be with Daphne, and we could make gang drama with that. I'm glad that they gave us a great new character to be a foil to Velma in that regard. Because if you like look at how like proper prim and to the rules Velma is, then you pair her up with a chaotic criminal, it's like you're saying opposites attract, and I love Coco a lot. Like Coco, yeah,
was
I like this a
developed
lot.
was developed correctly. At least they worked on the whole area and didn't force it down in the wrong way. I actually did prefer it. The movie was actually done really well.
The only criticism I've got is for all I like the moment at the end where, Fred's like, "Oh, Daphne, you were the leader of Mystery Inc. all along. I just love the Mystery Machine." I like the moment, but I don't feel like the movie necessarily earns that moment. Like if that happened at the end of Curse of the 13th Ghost, God forbid we bring that one up again, I think it would have earned it more. Whereas this, I liked it. It was just, oh, okay, I guess that's a nice moment. Everything else, though, I like. I have a feeling like, and this is maybe me, maybe obviously I might say this because you always want what you can't have. I have a feeling that Haunted High Rise would have been Ultra Instinct, and this was just maybe their first trip into feeling it out. They do a good job with their debut, this whole crew. I feel like Haunted High Rise would have been Ultra Instinct. This, I think it's strongly Hell Groovy. I just and I've got a lot of love for it. The only thing that brings it down slightly is just the fact that it really only makes sense to watch this on the build up to Halloween. Like
Yeah,
you couldn't really enjoy this the same in the summer, especially not with the
it's a
pumpkin
Halloween
outfits.
movie,
Like,
but that does mean that with all these movies now, if they ever do another new box set, they now have enough movies to do a
yes.
full Halloween set properly
Even
this
you could have
time.
but that would imagine that would have broken my heart. You could have started it with Witch's Ghost and ended it with Haunted High Rise.
Yeah,
Hex Gold, but at least now you've got what? You got Witch's Ghost because there's the pumpkin thing. You got Goblin King,
yeah,
Happy Halloween, Trick or Treat. That's a solid collection,
that's a
actually.
solid collection they
I
could
would
do.
buy that like 10 times. So let me just go through these things. I think. Oh, I think again, it's a lot more palatable to me than Goblin King. I might even like this more than Alien Invaders. but I don't think. I want to put it either above or below Goblin King.
I'll say put it above Goblin King because it's still in A, like how groovy.
How about Stage Fright? Because I think about Stage Fright and I like it. And the only reason why I'm instantly going to give that the edge is that it's general. You know, you could potentially enjoy Stage Fright all year round. But then I think I'd be lying to myself if I didn't say that I remember a lot more about Trick or Treat than I did about Stage Fright.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. I like Trick or Treat a lot. So do we put it above or below Stage Fright? That's my question.
So I really like Stage Fright.
Me
Oh,
too.
I'll say, I want to say put it above
Mhm.
because Stage Fright is mostly a musical. So if we take the musical stuff out, I feel like it
Oh
falls
yeah.
short of Trick or Treat.
Yeah, like, without that home record, you know what? I like that placement. Oh, it really does annoy me though, because I would bet like £1,000 here, right here, right now. Haunted High Rise would have been Ultra Instinct. Maybe you wouldn't have put it on the level of Camp Scare or even Witch's Ghost, but I do feel like it would have been Ultra Instinct. But I guess that's neither here nor there. That is our penultimate part of the tier list. I'm really happy with the placement of all of these. Like, again, the only one that I would dramatically change in terms of if I was doing this completely by myself would be Loch Ness Monster. But that's always going to be a kind of contention between us. So I really like how it's coming together so far. But yeah, that does it for this part of the tier list. Mark, thank you so much again for joining. It's so weird, you know, we did, and these are coming out way too, like, because these tier lists, this episode realistically won't go out until, I don't know, like December or something. It's weird. But we jumped on a trending topic potentially with that Springtrap video. But even that, the tier list we released the week after has got more views than that. So these tier list videos are doing quite well. So I'm very happy. I'm very grateful to people that are watching this that want to hear what we have to say about these movies.
Because what we could do after all the movies and that, we could always do episode tier lists.
Oh, I don't think I could
Yeah,
do it. I
that's
don't think I could do it. That'd be a bit of a.
that'd be a long project.
Oh, we could try it though, at least
We
for
could we,
certain
we
series
could
at
we
a
could try
time.
it with like nostalgic series. Like,
Oh,
where are you? That's 25 episodes. We got this.
we could definitely give that a go.
We
But
got the
I guess for people
especially how
watching,
much I watched that.
that's a good point. So for people watching, Mark, where can they find you on the World Wide Web?
You can find me on my social medias at Instagram at MarkMarsh94 or on Twitter at IgosLuigi, or over on my YouTube channel at Mark Marsh.
I'll be sure to keep that in the description down below. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. And if you do want to see more, then please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.